Are you looking for a budget-friendly GPS watch for your trail and ultra running? Well, today we're reviewing the Coros Apex Pro 2, which I think could be a great choice for you. I've used it up to a 100-mile race. It was absolutely perfect in terms of battery life, and I think the affordability and the simplicity of the watch is absolutely fantastic. So I brought my special guest, Nora. We've both tested it for hundreds of miles in the past few months, and today we're giving you our impression of the Coros Apex 2 Pro. Hey, Simon here. Welcome to my channel. Today we're doing gear review, GPS watch, not just any watch. We're doing the Coros Apex 2 Pro. On this channel, as you know, I try to be as transparent as possible, and the way I do my review is that I focus on the functionality of it. So basically, it's putting a lot of mileage on it. We're not talking about lab review. We're not talking about theoretical difference. We're talking about difference that truly matters and truly make a difference. And the watch that we're reviewing today, the Apex 2 Pro, the way I would describe it is that it's the middle of the ground watch for the Coros line. You have the Pace watch, which is kind of more your entry level, not necessarily for trail running. You have the Apex Pro, which can go all the way to 100 mile, no problem. And then you have the Vertex 2S, which is something I would use more if you're running 200 miler. So that's the first question is, why do you want to watch? And I feel that overall, the Apex 2 Pro is a great watch if you're getting into ultra running, if you're getting into trail running. You want something that has navigation, that has a map that you can upload course, but also you don't necessarily want to break the bank, especially that you're learning about everything, you're learning about your preference, you want to test things out. This is the perfect watch for that. And because we all have different experience and different priorities when it comes to different product, both shoes, but also for watches, I try as much as possible to bring my little helper. My wife Nora has been testing the product also for the watch. But just to summarize, this is a middle of the ground watch, but technology has evolved so much over the past few years that middle of the ground means that you can definitely use that watch to run a 100-mile ultra marathon. I've used it myself up to 40 hours. That was absolutely no problem. So then you have to ask yourself, does it actually make a functional difference to have, let's say, a battery if it lasts 40 hours? How often do you need it to last 45 hours? Is that really a need that you have? Of course, higher precision is always better, but do you really need to be at plus or minus 1 millimeter? At the end of the day, you're on a trail. It's going to be approximate. Sometimes you're in remote locations, sometimes you're in canyon, and in fact, it's not the watch that is the problem, but it's just the signal to the satellite. It's bouncing around, so the precision is kind of messed up. And when you're going to race ultra marathon, you're going to soon realize that sometimes they will tell you it's 5.7 miles to the next aid station. None of the watch is giving 5.7. It's all giving 6.8. And that's just the nature of it. Does it really matter to have a 0.001 mile difference and what is actually the real distance? It doesn't make a functional difference. It doesn't change your experience of it. So when I do these review, and Nora also, we really try to focus on, okay, I've been using it. What do I think about it? Was there something that was missing? Was there something that was a problem with this product or not? And obviously I'm tipping my hand. I gave the watch to Nora. Nora is my wife. I love her, so I would not give her a crappy product. So I've tested it myself. I appreciated the watch. I felt that for me, it was a great watch when I'm running 100 miler, but because I've been running 200 miler, I felt that the watch that had longer battery was something that was important for me. But if you're starting to the sport, if you're getting more serious about running your first 50K, 50 mile, 100 mile, I think this is a great product for you. And with that being said, let's dive into the functional review of the Apex 2 Pro. All right, well, Nora, thanks for coming by your house, basically. But yeah, so today, what are we testing?
Today we are testing the Coros Apex 2 Pro.
Yeah, so I've tested it myself for a few months before I realized that maybe it would be a good idea to also have our experience with it. We have different experience with different watches. I've used it myself, I think, for a few hundred miles. How about yourself?
I've also used it for a few hundred miles over the past 6 months.
Yeah, I think actually you used it more than I did. And before that, what were you using?
I was using a Garmin Phoenix.
Yeah, so Phoenix 5, Phoenix 6, right?
Yeah.
Same for me, actually, and I've been using also the Coros Vertex 2S. So it's good to have a little bit of context of how we're going to think about these watch.
Yeah.
All right, and I think the first thing we should always ask ourselves is, what are we using the product for? So what are you looking for in a watch?
So for me, as a pretty casual trail and ultra runner, I'm looking for long battery life. I'm looking for ease and comfort of fit, and I'm looking for a watch that has a decent amount of accuracy to do different types of activities from the trail to the gym.
Yeah, I never knew we could say casual and ultra runner in the same sentence, but she's trying her best to make it sound easy. But yeah, running up to 100K for myself, I mean, it's basically that. I really just want the battery to last a long time. And it depends on the specific use. If I do 200 miler, I will want more, but that's really the exception. Usually something that lasts in the 30, 40 hours is plenty enough. Comfort, and of course, we're broke, so a budget watch sometimes is helpful.
Yes.
All right, so we're gonna dive into some specifics. So let's talk navigation.
So in my experience, the Coros watch has been fine for navigation. Full disclosure, I didn't read the manual before I started playing with the watch. And I had to ask Simon where to find the navigation when I first looked at the watch. So it wasn't the most intuitive for me to find navigation, but it didn't seem wildly inaccurate or hard once he helped me.
Yeah, I mean, full disclaimer and everything. I did not read the manual. I think it was super intuitive for me. I literally used the watch just before a race, was able to download GPX and use the navigation very well. So for me, it is actually intuitive. You actually don't need to read about it, but maybe people are less familiar with watch and struggle a little bit more. But that's why we're married, right? What was your experience? Was it easy to use?
Yeah, so as soon as I got the watch, the first activities I'm using are running and trail running, so running on roads and running on trails. And incredibly easy and intuitive. I knew exactly how to click, pause, hold. It was fairly, again, intuitive to use without reading any manual, which I did not. And then it was also fairly easy to use when I switched to a different activity like strength training. Again, very intuitive. You just follow the directions and it tells you exactly what to do. What about you, Simon? What was your experience?
Yeah, so I mean, I use it mostly just for trail running, but also in the gym. At first, I didn't find the button to be so intuitive. Maybe it's because I'm used to the Garmin system where you have, I think, 5 buttons and then it's obvious what each one is doing, whereas this one you have to press and hold or you have to scroll. But once you got that figured out, it's pretty clear. This is take the menu, move back in and out. And there's a fair amount of different activities. Honestly, I mostly just use running, trail running, and indoor, and I guess maybe cycling a little bit. So I'm not using like the triathlon or all of these other aspect of it, but I'm sure some people would use it and I'm sure they would be helpful. So for me, in terms of comfort, I do like the Coros in general, and this one, we did take the nylon band, and for me, that works very well. I'm sure it's gonna get super dirty at some point, but I feel it's pretty comfortable. And specifically for the Apex, it's a little smaller and a little bit more curvier, the watch itself, than the Vertex or the more typical bulky watch that you have. So I actually found it quite comfortable, and for that I think it's a good kind of first big ass GPS watch to get because it's a little bit more comfortable. It hurts a little bit less on the wrist. With enough time you're used to that, but I felt this one was a little more comfortable, which is a big reason why I lent it to Nora, because I felt it would be good for her or better.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly couldn't agree more. I think this is probably one of the most comfortable watches I've had, particularly with the adjustable strap. But the watch itself is very lightweight, easy on someone who's a little shorter or smaller. But the strap in and of itself is really adjustable. It's like a Velcro strap versus other straps that I've worked with. So it's you're not having to compromise between like cutting off for circulation or way too loose and it's banging around. So very easily adjustable, very easy to use. So one note I would say for myself is I noticed my skin got a little irritated because I was being a little bit lazy and not taking it off enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think for any watch, it's just good practice, especially when you're not used to it too. Sometimes you need to remove it at night. It's good to track the night and the sleep cycle. But if it's not fully dry, and especially if you start getting irritation, it's just a cycle. So removing it, sleeping without it, just using it for activity, eventually you get used to it. I think any watch, you get used to it. And then the big one, I think that's why people move to Coros, is that the watch itself tends to be a little bit simpler. There's less feature, but with less feature actually means longer battery life. So what was your experience?
I mean, this is my favorite feature of the watch by far, is the incredibly long battery life. I use the watch almost every day for some activity or another, and I think I maybe charge it every month, every few weeks. I can't remember the last time I charged it. It is the longest lasting battery life ever. I really can just totally forget about it, which is such a difference compared to other watches where I'm charging at least once a week, and I'm definitely making sure I have full charge before a race.
Yeah, I mean, for me, racing 100 mile with it, actually, I compare it. I was wearing, I think, 3 or 4 watch when I did Leadville. I did the same thing at Angeles Crest, and it did it no problem. You don't need even to charge it necessarily before 100 miler, which is peace of mind that is absolutely great. How does it compare to like the flagship watch like a Vertex? It's not as good, but you easily get 40-50 hours of activity tracking on GPS, which is plenty enough for most of the time. And yeah, I mean, it's true. You kind of forget when's the last time you charge it. Usually you'll drain it a lot in a race, but other than that, it's just barely moving, which is a great feeling and great freedom of mind. So one thing that I liked, or maybe it's something that I didn't like, is I didn't necessarily like the screen feature of activities that are by default with the watch. It's just not the information that I necessarily want. Sure, there was the basic, like the time, the speed, these sorts of things, but I want to see altitude and these things. So the default was not great. I had to play with it a little bit in the app and fixing the watch face that I would want both at rest, but also when I'm tracking an activity. So I have my default one for trail running. But the fact that you can customize it and it's fairly intuitive in the app was great. But I wish they had, I don't know, they had asked me before, what is it that you want to see when you're trail running? In terms of customization, I don't think you necessarily did that, but there's a few features that by default I think is not necessarily great. For example, the watch will track every mile and will beep. That's just annoying. So I had to go in the app. I had to figure it out and then switch the setting a little bit. For example, I have an alarm now every 3 miles, which is practical when I make my movie instead of all the time. And then the watch face, the information, I have altitude, gain, loss, pace. This is what I'm actually looking for. So you have to customize it, but the fact that you can customize it is good. So I guess that's a positive. The other thing that I don't think you're the one who did it, but when you get the watch, you have to download the maps. So you have to go in the apps, you have to clip the maps that you want by geography. And something that is good to know, because if you just buy it and you go for a big race and you haven't downloaded the map, you'll be kind of screwed a little bit. But that's just a one-time thing, except if you travel to Japan and then you forget that you have to download the map, then you won't have navigation, which is kind of problematic. So it's just something that you need to keep in mind that is slightly annoying, but that's, a one-time thing. And then the last thing, I think I just want to know in general, what do you think? What are the features that you liked? What are the things that you have missed on this watch? Especially compared, the experience that you've had was with Phoenix 5 and 6, which are older model, but also maybe pricier watch.
Yeah, so I think overall I've really enjoyed this watch a lot. It's been perfect for what I do as a hybrid athlete who's weight training, recovering from an injury, and getting back into trail and ultra running. It does things accurate enough for me in terms of trail and navigation and documenting my mileage, etc. And I think a number of things that I also like that are maybe not discussed typically in certain reviews. It doesn't tell me that I'm unproductive ever, not once. I appreciate that the feedback is something you have to check on the app, or you have to dig for it, but it doesn't immediately when I finish something tell me I'm unproductive. I also like the screen touch. I think that's actually really fun. That said, some of the features that I would have liked to see, I think there were a couple activities that I would have liked to see more immediately, like things like yoga and Pilates. These restorative activities weren't immediately accessible on the list of options, but there's windsurfing, etc.
Yeah. For me, the Apex 2 is actually, it's a great watch for someone who's trail running, ultra running. It strikes me as just the technology in general in watches has evolved over the past few years. So it's really not fair to compare to a Phoenix 5, but I feel that we've reached a point where this is not the top of the top in terms of watch. It's not the most accurate, the best battery, the biggest screen, the brightest screen, but it does everything it does well enough. And I think the level of accuracy that you're looking for when you're trail running and you're on trail, this is perfect for that. The battery life, unless you're going for a multi-day adventure, this is perfect for that. And the price is very reasonable. So it strikes me as a very good entry level when you're getting into ultra running. You want something for navigation that is a little bit better than the base watch. I think that's a great product. There are things that I didn't necessarily like. I like the watch. If I didn't love that watch, I wouldn't have given it to my wife, of course. But something that is interesting is that English is not my native language. And one of the things that I'm missing is that I don't know all of the curse word. And if you want to learn how to curse, go to a bar where there's a lot of sailors, or run with Nora when her watch is 0.01 mile behind mine. My watch will ding ding, then her watch later, and she is cursing so much. It is actually really funny. I've learned a lot from that. I don't think that's necessarily a feature, I don't think that's necessarily a feature of the Coros watch, but that's something that I've appreciated a lot. Hey, Simon from the future, editing Simon. And there is a feature that I forgot to mention that I wish was on the watch. Now, a feature that would be absolutely fantastic, of course, is if you could communicate your position externally. Now, that's not something you expect to be able to do without, satellite connection. So we're talking about like an inReach or something like that. But even when you have your phone and you have service, I wish there was a way to very easily communicate back and forth, say with Nora and I'm sharing the location. I can do that with my phone, but not with the watch. I don't know if there's a solution. There might be, but that's something that would be just the added thing that would make a watch absolutely fantastic. You can track someone live, and of course in races you have trackers sometimes, but if there was a way to do that with watch, it would be absolutely fantastic. Now I think I'm asking something that is technically not super feasible, but potentially if it's using the phone service to do that, that's something that could be possible, and in fact is potentially already possible, but not something that is so obvious to do. So that's it, high level. That was our experience with the watch. Nora is my pacer, as you know, and as a pacer, if you want to be a good pacer, you need to have some jokes. So Nora, tell us a joke.
All right, folks, here's the joke. What do you call a bear with no teeth?
I don't know.
Do you know, Simon?
No, she didn't tell me before.
Gummy bear.
Ooh, I want some actually.
Nah, it's perfect for ultra running. Anyway, hot news segment if you're ever curious. Happy to do a little joke corner for pacers and crew out there trying to support your runners.
All right, folks. So I hope you appreciate this video. As you know, it's come as we go. We improvise a little bit, but that's our experience with the Coros Apex 2 Pro. If you appreciate it, please leave a thumbs up, comment below, share with your friends, and see you next time.